Good morning, everyone. How we doing on this Saturday morning? Another Final Cut TV and coffee. Look at that. Already got thumbs up, haven't even started yet. Our friend Eric Emmerich says, I saw the Apple Final Cut Pro promo video with my own two eyes and still can't believe it. It was very, very interesting. I saw it a little bit early, I think, and then I was like, what the heck's going on here? After all these years, why now? That's the question I always have to ask. Now, very, very grateful, of course. Good afternoon, my Final Cut Pro guru from Philadelphia. Good morning, good evening here from the Netherlands. It's actually 12 noon here. It's right exactly at lunchtime. 12 p.m. So it got a lot of attention, which is, I think, exactly what they intended. So why haven't they done it prior? Why now? Why now, indeed? Why now? That's my curiosity. They had the ability to do it for the last 12, 13 years. They know how to edit. They got the software. They got the platform. Why did it just start? We appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. Thank you, Final Cut Pro team, for giving Final Cut Pro, well, let me rephrase that. Thank you, Apple, for letting the Final Cut Pro team do some promotion for Final Cut Pro. I'm sure the Final Cut Pro teams wanted to do it all along. Whatever the reason has been, it hasn't appeared on the Apple channel. That's the main thing. Let's have a cup of coffee or a sip. Have a sip anyway. So we're all appreciative. We do our own videos for Final Cut Pro. I do tutorials. Some of my tutorials have 30,000 views. Some of them have 24,000, whatever. The short, direct to the point tutorials, I think, are the best ones. Get right to the point. That's what I try to do for the most part. When I do tutorial, we've got a little bit to talk about. So we have a couple things coming up. Of course, we have the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, November the 13th through November the 15th, Cupertino, California. We're back at the Juniper. Thank you, Apple and Future Media Conferences. We're going back to Apple Spaceship Campus. I hope we spend a little more time inside this time rather than, I don't think we need another tour around the outside. We did that extensively last time. Let's do a tour on the inside as much as possible. I realize that there'll be employees in there, but we want to go to Tim Cook's office. We want to go to Tim Cook's office this time. We'll bring him some balloons. We'll give him some balloons. Hey, Tim, thank you for supporting Final Cut Pro, our favorite piece of software. So we have the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit in 3 months. I've seen this comment a couple of times. Knowing Apple, they probably cut that promo video with Resolve or Premiere, considering the fact that both of the people, the voiceover and the person editing at the desk, are both on the Final Cut Pro team. I don't think they edited that in anything but Final Cut Pro. It wasn't that complicated, was it? Maybe with the iPhone. Maybe with the iPhone 16 Pro, Pro Max coming out in 1 month. That's the other thing. So we have the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, November the 13th through the 15th. On the 13th, we're going to Apple Spaceship Campus again to see a presentation from the Final Cut Pro team, which last year we went there, and that's when they introduced Final Cut Pro 10.7 to the entire world. We got to see it first, and then the entire world knew about it. Didn't come out. It came out 3 weeks later, something like that, end of November. But we got the preview. We got the premiere of it, I'm saying. And I think they'll probably do the same thing again. Now, the question is, I don't think they're going to Final Cut Pro 10.9. I think they're going to Final Cut Pro 11. That's my guess. Based on what Logic Pro did. Logic Pro was updated to Logic Pro 10.8 last November. In May, it was updated to Logic Pro 11. I think Final Cut's going to do the same thing. We're at 10.8 now. 6 months from now, 5 months from now, it's actually, at this point, it's 3 months. But when it came out, it was a little over 5 months. And I think it also can go from 10.8 directly to 11. Now, what's in 11? No idea. What would I like to see in Final Cut Pro 11? Number 1, text-based editing. Number 2, auto captioning. Those two kind of go together. Text-based editing and auto captioning kind of go together. And then a wild guess, a wild thing, a role-based mixer. Finally, we get real audio controls inside of Final Cut instead of all this clunky jumping in and out of compound clips with rolls and stuff. I just want a master fader, volume fader for Final Cut Pro. Haven't had it in 13 years. I agree, Final Cut Pro 11. Now, the question is, let me play the question for you. Where is that? Let's go to this. Here's the question. Let's get rid of the ad first, then we'll play the question. Skip. Here's the question. Now, don't be confused. This is a video I put up. I have to set up the audio so it plays on the live stream. I didn't do that for some reason. Let me see here. How does that work? Turn that off. Click on this. Click on this. Oh, audio. Broadcast system audio all the time. It's interesting. Why isn't that playing out of here? What can we expect for the rest of 2024? Oh, I know why. Hold on one second. It's because we have to do this. Here we go. We got it now. What can we expect for the rest of 2024? My idea is we're going to see an update at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit on November the 13th. We're going to be at Apple Park, and we're going to meet with the Final Cut Pro team, our first meeting with the Final Cut Pro team, and usually they do a presentation. Wednesday is Apple Day, so that's probably going to be the announcement, whatever announcement they have. If they have an announcement, there's no guarantee that they will, but it makes sense that they will. On Wednesday, November the 13th, we'll get another update to Final Cut Pro. The question is, will there be any Final Cut Pro activity between now and November the 13th? Are they going to update Final Cut Pro, another bug fix, a couple of features for the new iPhone coming out in September before we get to the Creative Summit in November. I think there's a good possibility that we see Final Cut Pro 10.8.2 between now and the Creative Summit in November, because they want to sell iPhones. If there's a new video feature, spatial video for the glasses, there very well could be another update to Final Cut Pro before the Creative Summit. So there very well could be another update to Final Cut Pro before the Creative Summit. Because, first off, it's 3 months, September, October, November, a little less than 3 months. So there's time for a new version of Final Cut Pro. And I think it was last year, maybe the year before as well, that they updated Final Cut Pro for the iPhone. They updated Final Cut Pro for the iPhone. Now, the iPhone 16 Pro Max coming out in 1 month, is that going to be the version of Final Cut that's going to have spatial video editing built in? Because Apple announced that last year. They said next year it'll be available. If there's something special about the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max, I'll be getting the Pro Max, and I'll be keeping my 15 for my B camera. There very well could be a version of Final Cut Pro to tie in with the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Now, that won't be, I don't think it'll be a big one. It'll probably have a new feature or two tied in with the Vision Pro at video editing. But the big one will probably be Final Cut Pro 11 at the end of the year. Final Cut Pro 11 is my bet, along with Apple Intelligence features on Sequoia. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good evening from Brazil. Good evening, Rogerio. Glad you could make it. I'm glad you could make it. So, who was surprised and caught off guard by that Final Cut Pro video? The one from the Final Cut Pro team. Let's play that now. A little bit of it. I don't want to play too much of it. Let's just play a little bit of it. Here we go.
Final Cut Pro for Mac combines revolutionary video editing with powerful media organization, AI-enhanced features, and incredible performance.
Now, there's a couple of things. The guy that's on the screen is part of the Pro Apps team. This guy is part of the Pro Apps team. Now, last year when we were at the summit, he did the iPad presentation, if I'm not mistaken. He did the iPad presentation. So he's heavily involved with the iPad version of Final Cut. That's version 2. Final Cut for the Mac is at 10.8. There's a big gap in development between the iPad version and the Mac version, obviously. But he did, I think he did the iPad demonstration last year. He's part of the Final Cut Pro team. The other thing that you need to know is this.
Experiment with story ideas in the magnetic timeline by moving and trimming clips with ease.
Okay. The person that's doing the voiceover there is also part of the Final Cut Pro team. The person that's doing the voiceover, let me just look it up here real quick. Where is it? Here's my ID badge last year from visiting Apple. Every year they give you a different one to ID everybody. And this is mine from last year. But my point is, the person doing the voiceover on that promo / little mini tutorial is Bill Davis. And he's also on the Final Cut Pro team. So both the people that were involved, one on screen and one voiceover, are on the Final Cut Pro team.
Use advanced tools in the browser to quickly organize hours of footage, and choose from an expansive list of built-in effects, titles, and graphics to enhance your work even more.
So, we certainly want to give accolades to the Final Cut Pro team for doing that promotion, and also to Apple to letting them put it on their YouTube channel. Apple has 13, how many million? Almost 20 million subscribers. Almost 20 million subscribers on the Apple YouTube channel. So they all got to see, we're up to 130,000 views on that promo for Final Cut Pro. 130,000 views. And plug-in compatibility for iPad Final Cut Pro. I don't think that's going to happen. Final Cut iPad OS and Mac OS are completely different from each other. They are not the same. There's no way they're the same. They're completely different. So the iPad, the plugins that were developed for Mac OS will not work in iPad OS. They will not work, or you'd already see them. You would already see them. Nobody at this point is doing plugins for the iPad version of Final Cut Pro. Our friends over there, Roger Bolton over at CoreMelt, initially developed a iPad plugin stabilization for LumaFusion. So LumaFusion has a plugin, but there's some reason why the plugins are not being ported over to iPad OS and Mac OS. They don't exist. Mac OS and iPad OS are two different things. I prefer Mac OS by a large margin. I'm not a fan of iOS. I'm not a fan of iPad OS. I tolerate them because I love the hardware. I love my phone, and I got my new iPad Pro. But boy, I wish it was closer to Mac OS. So I don't think we're going to see plug-in compatibility for iPad Final Cut Pro not ported over from Mac OS. What I think is going to happen when they release whatever architecture they have to release to do the plugins, people are going to have to redo their plugins, and they're going to charge you for them. They're going to try to charge you. First off, I'm not using Final Cut on the iPad. I have Final Cut on my MacBook Pro. It's a superior version of Final Cut Pro. And I have thousands of third-party plugins that I've already bought. Number one is I'm not going to pay a subscription for Final Cut. Number two is I'm not going to pay for those plugins a second time. That's not going to happen. Emphasis on pro apps. Pro artists always drove Apple efforts on creativity. That's very true. That's very, very true. Apple has a lot to owe. They owe a lot to the pro apps people. Update later. People get little pop-ups here, say I update this and update that. But I was pleasantly surprised when I saw that. Pleasantly surprised. They have to have plugins on the iPad or it will die on the vine. They did say Final Cut Pro iPad will be able to use plugins. No one knows how it will happen. My point is they're not going to be able to port natively. They can't just take the Mac OS plugins over to the iPad because Mac OS and iPad OS are completely different. Plugins are going to have to be developed for the iPad specifically. It's going to take time and money, talent from plug-in people. Why are there none at this point? iPad OS has been out for over a year. No plugins. Why? Why are there no plugins for the iPad OS? I mean, not for iPad OS. Well, for iPad OS and Final Cut on the iPad, there's no plugins. It's been over a year. It's been a year, 14 months, 15 months. If it was easy, the plugins would already be there. If it was easy to take a Mac OS plugin and port it over to iPad OS, they would already be there. They're not there because iPad OS is problematic, I guess. I mean, otherwise, why wouldn't they be there? Why wouldn't the plugin developers even if they just made new plugins and say, okay, these plugins are going to be for Final Cut Pro, we're going to start from here going forward, and these plugins are for Final Cut on the iPad. So there's a reason why there's no plugins on for Final Cut on iPad at this point. 14 months, you can't put out one plugin for Final Cut on the iPad? Doesn't make sense. There's got to be a reason. There's got to be issues or problems. From what I understand, Apple hasn't released the plugin, whatever they have to release, the plugin architecture for the iPad yet. I think that's probably the problem. And until they do, obviously there's no plugins for the iPad. Maybe Apple might make a comeback in the big leagues after Adobe upset users by changing their terms and conditions, resulting in subscription cancellations. Yeah, they did. We talked about that a couple weeks ago when it happened. But Apple, the way we're looking at Final Cut Pro, one thing that they told us, let's answer this question. Why put out a plugin if the architecture isn't ready? They can't. But that's what my point is. iPad's been out for Final Cut Pro's been out 14 months. No plugins. I think because Apple hasn't released the plugin architecture, well, why haven't they? Because it's problematic. There's problems with it. It doesn't work. They can't just take a Mac OS plugin and port it over to iPad OS. I'm not saying that's what I've heard, that the Apple hasn't released that plugin architecture. Why? Do they want to promote Final Cut on the iPad? Of course they do. Do they want it to have plugins? Of course they do. But they haven't done it yet because there must be issues. That's my point. Yes, we have a lot of motion VFX plugins, but it don't work with Final Cut on iPad. Maybe they'll do something in the future. I'm sure we'll get a rash of plugins once the Final Cut on iPad plugin floodgates open. My point is, I'm not rebuying those plugins. All you plugin manufacturers, I'm not going to rebuy your plugins. Number one is I'm not using Final Cut on the iPad. I use LumaFusion on my iPad Pro, and I love LumaFusion. I'm a big fan. As a matter of fact, Terry and Chris are going to be on Final Cut TV next week talking about LumaFusion 5.0. Wednesday, I think. Yeah, I think it's Wednesday, yeah. They'll be on Wednesday. And we'll talk all about Final Cut on the iPad, LumaFusion 5.0, and whatever else we want to talk about. Because it's hard, or I can't imagine that it's just only hard. I think it's probably problematic. I think there's problems with doing plugins on the iPad. And maybe Apple has to change something. Maybe when they update iPad OS, I guess they're going to do it with iOS and Mac OS. Sequoia is coming out in September, October. iOS might be coming out at the same time because they have features that both OSs have to be updated on. Maybe there'll be some kind of an advancement on iPad plugins at that point. Certainly, they will expand in-app purchases inside Final Cut Pro for iPad, maybe third-party plugins, but users today rely on DaVinci, LumaFusion, and other mobile NLEs. Yes. If Apple, Final Cut Pro team, if you have any say in this, put out a version of Final Cut on iPad that's not a subscription. Let us pay for it with the one-time purchase price. Listen, just say, okay, we'll let you buy it without paying the rental every month, the subscriptions every month, because subscriptions are like this. All over the place. All we got is subscriptions. We're tired of subscriptions. Apple doesn't need subscriptions. Let us buy Final Cut on the iPad For a one-time perpetual license, at least you can say, okay, this is iPad version 2. We'll let you have all the updates until version 3 comes out, and then you can continue to use 2 when 3 comes out, but you just won't get version 3 or anything after that. Don't cut us off like Adobe does. You got to pay the ransom every month or the iPad version won't work, which is what it is now. I'm not going to buy into that. Would I buy Final Cut on iPad if I could buy it, the license? Absolutely. I got my iPad Pro. I'm using LumaFusion. Yes, I would buy it if I could buy it for a one-time price. Just say, okay, we'll give you updates for 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And then we could worry about later when there's a new version out, what happens. But you don't take away the version that I paid for. You don't take it away. That's holding the iPad, Final Cut for iPad ransom. I'm not going to buy into that. Plus, I don't need it. I got Final Cut on my MacBook Pro. I was thinking about it. I'm probably going to get the M4 MacBook Pro, the 16-inch, because I don't want to wait around for another year for the M5 version. So I'll probably get the M4 version. I'll keep my M1 Max to make sure the M4 version works with my legacy RAIDs, works with my new Pro LTO 9 Firewire drive, not Firewire, Thunderbolt drive, desktop drive that I've been using. It's been an adventure, let me tell you. I've been working with this drive, archiving stuff for a week Friday. It's been up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. Let me tell you one thing. Hats off to Hedge. There we go. Another thumbs up. Thank you very much for watching and adding to our viewer count. Hats off to Hedge, who I bought this through. They've been a big help with getting through the initial bumps in the road that I'm having archiving. So they recommended what drive I get. They handle a couple different drives, and I'm using their software, which is called Canister. But it's not been smooth sailing. It's been up and down. It's good, then it's something that happens, and something happens. They've been very, very proactive trying to resolve any specific issues. So we'll see what happens next week. Right now, I'm still working on a couple of tapes. My first 2 tapes, filling them up. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So everybody was surprised when that video came out. Let's go watch a little bit more. Let's go watch a little bit more. A little bit more of the video.
And with Final Cut Pro 10.8, you can take your workflows to the next level. Final Cut Pro 10.8 introduces 2 new AI-powered features that instantly improve the look of your edit. Enhance Light and Color analyzes your video and automatically adjusts all aspects of the image for an amazing color correction.
Sorry, I got the mic. Got it. It's hard to predict exactly, number one, when the new version of Final Cut's coming out. Number 2, what's it going to be called? Is it going to be 10.8.2? Is it going to be called 10? I don't think they're going to go to 10.9. I don't think they're going to go to 10.9. 10.8.2, 10.8.5, blah, blah. I don't know. I know I'm pretty confident we're getting a new version of Final Cut at the Creative Summit in November, but I think there's going to be another version coming when the iPhone's introduced, the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Look, I'm excited about that as well. They always improve the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I always improve that. And I expect this one will be no different. The leaks, yeah, there's all kinds of leaks. Here's a couple of things I'd like to see. Number one, I'd like to see an improvement to the Final Cut camera. I'd like to see 2 or 3 improvements I'd like to see there. Number two is we're at 5 times optical zoom, so bumping it up to 6 would be fine, and bumping a couple of the lenses, other cameras up. And plus, I love Apple ProRes logs, so whatever improvements they can make there. If they can make the native camera app, do different flavors of Apple log besides being stuck at one ProRes HQ flavor, that would be a real bonus. Blackmagic can do it. Blackmagic has 6 different flavors, 7 different flavors of ProRes log, including H.264 and H.265, Apple Proxy, ProRes LT, regular ProRes, ProRes HQ, all those the Blackmagic camera can do in Apple log. So maybe they'll improve that as well. What else are we expecting on the iPhone 16 Pro Max? I'm expecting a couple of things. New cameras, better processing, new advanced AI features, whatever. I mean, I don't buy an iPhone for anything but for the video camera. I don't use my phone that much. I mean, I text message some, but I buy it for the video camera. That's what I buy it for. So this one will be my B cam when the iPhone 16 Pro Max comes out. And looks like I'll be having the iPhone 16 Pro Max in time for the Creative Summit, which will be fantastic. So we have 130,000 views of this Apple video.
Use it as a starting point for more fine-tuning. This machine learning model is built from the experience of industry professionals, and you can tap into their skills with a single click. You can now take advantage of smooth slow-mo to create stunning slow-motion visuals.
So stunning slow-motion visuals. Now, I've used that a little bit, the slow-motion, a little bit. You just click on the one icon and you choose whatever it says. What does it say? But that's got 130,000 views at this point. Once again, Final Cut Pro team, we know you watch this video, so this live stream, this is one of your favorite ones to watch. Not that there's a whole lot of them out there. I've been doing this 79 weeks of Final Cut TV and coffee. 79 weeks. We're heading into our 2nd year later this year. So we've been here every Saturday. If you've missed it, make sure you subscribe. Ring the notification bell and all that good stuff. Do you have any other comments about Final Cut? What do you think? You think we're going to see Final Cut, a new version of Final Cut with the iPhone? Who thinks we are? I'm fairly confident that's going to happen. So that'll be September, end of September, beginning of October timeframe. We also have another big event this fall. New M4 MacBook Pros, new M4. There's a new Mac Mini coming out with a smaller form factor, apparently. And new iMac with the M4. I mean, I'm a big fan of the iMac, but I'm not going to buy a MacBook Pro and an iMac. Probably going to get the MacBook Pro. I really like my setup that I have right now. Let's pull this up here. Eric says no new version until November. I'll take a coffee bet on that, Eric. If you want to bet me a coffee, I'll say that there's going to be a new version tied in with the iPhone, spatial video, whatever. Because the iPhone 16 Pro Max will certainly have, I mean, the iPhone 15 can shoot spatial video. The iPhone 16 is probably going to have another boost in that department. So I think a new version of Final Cut. They did last year. They updated Final Cut for the iPhone when the iPhone came out. They might have done it for the last 2 years. They did it with cinematic video. When cinematic video came out on the iPhone, that was 3 years ago, 2 years ago. They updated Final Cut for that. Okay, one coffee it is. There you go. One coffee it is. Excellent. I'll give you the link to buymeacoffee.com. And you can join in there, or if I see you at the summit, I'll buy you a coffee if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to see that. If the M4 Mac Ultra Studio is released, I'll upgrade it from the M1 Ultra. Yes, now here's the thing. That could throw a clink in my system, in my buying plans. If they come out with the M4 Ultra Mac Studio, I'm going to be like, do I want the MacBook Pro? Do I want the Studio? Do I want the MacBook Pro? Do I want the Studio? Because my M1 Mac, the reason I have the MacBook is for when I travel, when I go to NAB and when I go to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. I need to have my MacBook Pro because that's what I edit on. That's what I'm comfortable with. That's what I do my live streams on with Ecamm Live. I do them on my MacBook Pro. Can't do them on the iPad. So we have Blackmagic camera on one hand, and we have Final Cut camera on the other hand. Final Cut camera can do live multicam, and then the Blackmagic camera has come out with multi-camera something or other. You can now control up to 4 cameras, just like the multicam with Blackmagic camera and an iPad for master control. It's like some of the same features are happening in both versions. Now, one thing you can't do with the live multicam is you can't live stream it to Facebook and to YouTube and to X like we're doing right today. Can't do that. It's only local. I'm happy with the hardware. I have M2 Ultra as main machine. Yeah. Everybody likes the Mac Studio, and I would too. I have screens. I have the screens for it, but I have a third screen, which is my MacBook Pro. At this point, if I had to decide today, I'm going to get the new MacBook Pro, the M4 MacBook Pro. But we'll have to see what the Studio offers, because we'll have to see. Have to see. I'm not in any hurry. I'm not in any hurry. Thank you for the old thumbs up. It's appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe over there. Final Cut TV, Richard Taylor TV over there on YouTube. Let's see if we have that anywhere. Do we have that? Yeah, right here. Let's do that. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe over there at Richard Taylor TV. Don't forget. Yes. Yes. Let's see how we're doing. Got a lot of viewers on X. Nobody's commented from X today. 25 viewers over there on X at this point. 25 viewers over there on X. One of the things that I haven't done, I haven't gone from Ventura over to Sonoma yet 100%. I'm on Sonoma now because of this. Because I can do these with hardware, which I can't do in Ventura. I can't do them with hardware in Ventura. So I'm on Sonoma. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. So I don't expect anything to happen with Final Cut until the end of September or the beginning of October, unless there's a bug fix. Unless there is a bug fix. Then, if there's a bug fix in the works, I don't know. Have you seen any bugs since 10.8.1 came out? I think that took care of most of them. Let's check out the backyard. Look at that. Beautiful. So this scene is going to be changing. Let me just show you. This scene is going to be changing. I am going to be, there's a tree over here. This big oak tree in the background. We're going to trim it up or take it down in September. It's right at the back of my property. So that skyline's going to change. That skyline's going to be opened up. I have a red maple. I have a dogwood tree over there, and you can't see the red maple. And then these trees above me are going to stay, but that one oak is going to be at least trimmed back. So that skyline's going to change. It's getting to be fall. If you can see those little specks on my grass, those are leaves coming down from our oak trees. I'd like conforming the frame rate of a compound clip to a higher one, not changes composition's timing. Expand on that a little bit more. I'm not sure. So conforming the frame rate of a compound clip to a higher one, not changes compositing timeline. So the clips inside are changing once you conform it to a higher frame rate. Is that what's happening? That would be good. That certainly would be good. Let's go back and watch a little bit more of our video. Just a tad.
Simply adjust the speed of your clip with Smooth Slow-Mo, and Final Cut Pro will analyze the movement and use an all-new AI-enhanced algorithm for the highest quality results.
All-new AI-enhanced algorithm. Didn't say machine learning, they said AI. So those are the two big AI features, and I expect there's more. I expect we're going to have another surprise. Look, I say this because it's true. The Final Cut Pro Creative Summit is hands down my favorite Final Cut Pro event of the year. It's the biggest Final Cut Pro event in the world. It's the biggest Final Cut Pro event in the world. Let's just go over there and see what's up. So, Cupertino, let's pull this over here. Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, 13th to the 15th. The program's not up yet. But you can cancel with up to 7 days before the actual event. You can cancel and there's no penalty. You don't have to worry about being penalized. So there's no reason why you wouldn't register now. So what is the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit? Here's all your information. VIP guest presentations. Tickets are $5.99 and they include 2 full days of cutting-edge training plus 1 day at Apple Park. Wednesday. Access to networking expo night to interact with peers and local talent. This is cool. A goodie bag of digital products provided by sponsors. So that usually is free software license to some of the people that are going to be there. That could be worth hundreds of dollars on its own. I've gotten free software when I've gone there. I work with animation that places a background image behind the original footage to fill the pillar box, so sometimes the background image changes a frame early and a higher frame rate. Gotcha. Workaround is to export the compound clip to burn in the composition. There you go. I've done that as well. Here's a little tip for you. Here's a little tip. A lot of times, if you render something in your timeline, when you open and close Final Cut Pro, you come back to it, the render's no longer rendered. If you have a portion of your timeline that you want to stay rendered, set an I at the beginning, set an O at the end of it, export just that portion of the timeline, and then bring that clip back in over top. And you don't have to worry about it becoming unrendered anymore. If I need something rendered, that's what I do. Set an I and the O, export it, bring it back into Final Cut. It won't become unrendered. I do that whenever I need. I don't render that much. But if something does need rendering, it's causing problems, that's what I do. All right. Let's go to a little movie from the Creative Summit. Let's see what we have lined up here. Oh, that's me and Mark Spencer. What did you think about the update?
I thought it was great that there was an update. You know, that there's progress being made, and it sounds like they're working hard, and I'm looking forward to more.
Yeah.
Always want to see more.
This is 10.7.0, not completed 10.7. This is the beginning of the 10.7 era.
Yeah, because kind of you assume, 10.7 sounds like a big thing to be like a whole bunch of big features.
Right.
And there weren't. You know, there was a couple of things. They're great. They're interesting. They're useful things. And I think we'll keep seeing more. So I'm like, stay tuned. I mean, the fact is, it's a great app. I love the app. The development process has been frustratingly slow relative to the other options in the market, but it's the best option in the market as far as I'm concerned.
You know, I have to agree with that, with Mr. Mark Spencer. That was from the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, November of 2023. One of my many, many live streams that I did. This is the expo night, and I'll go around to talk to people, see what they think about the update to Final Cut Pro or anything other Final Cut Pro related. I've been doing that for years, and I'll be doing it again in 2024. We'll do a live stream. We'll interview people. There's a lot of stuff that you haven't seen from previous Final Cut Pro Creative Summits I'm not going to put out another documentary. I put out a documentary about the Creative Summit last year before they announced we're going to be back in person again. I think about a year ago, maybe summer or something like that. And I did a documentary. It's on my YouTube channel. You can watch that. But things have changed. Last year we didn't go to Juniper Hotel. This year we are going back to the Juniper. Perfect setup. It's fantastic. You don't have to drive anywhere. You just get a hotel room upstairs, and then all the sessions are downstairs. You meet people in the lobby. It's fantastic. But there's some things that have changed since we've been there. We were there last time in 2019, 5 years ago. We were at the Juniper 5 years ago. We didn't get there last year, so some things have changed. But we get to have good sessions with everything. Lots of cool stuff happening at the Juniper and the Creative Summit. Let's see what else we have here. I just put this up This was on my YouTube channel. 10.8.1 came out. We were waiting for it 53 days, something like that. Almost 2 months for three bug fixes, and I've heard there's another bug fix in there that wasn't mentioned in the release notes, so that may be there. But anyway, we certainly want to give the Final Cut Pro team thank you, thank you, thank you. You know you're on vacation, obviously. Thank you. There's another thumbs up. That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Final Cut Pro team. They're working hard on Final Cut Pro. So does everybody like the fact that they've started promoting Final Cut Pro? Hopefully this is not the last. They can do short videos like that, 3 or 4 minutes, highlighting some features. This is the first. I have a feeling it's not going to be the last. I think this is just starting the promotion of Final Cut Pro. Why it hasn't happened in the past? I don't think it's the Final Cut Pro team. Final Cut Pro team obviously watches this live stream. But we want to thank them and make sure that Apple continues to let them do promotional videos for it. We are in the dog days of summer. What is this? August the 24th. So I'll have Chris and Terry from LumaFusion on the show next Wednesday. I think 2 o'clock Eastern. I think it's at 2 o'clock Eastern. Now that could change depending on schedule. And they're going to be talking about LumaFusion 5.0 just came out. One-time purchase price, no subscription, one-time purchase price. And then they have add-on packs. They have 3 add-on packs. One is Final Cut Pro XML export. So you can export your LumaFusion project to Final Cut. One is their multicam package. Each one's $20, which is excellent. They did a great job on multicam. And the one they just came out with is sophisticated easing and Bezier curves and all that stuff. And that one just came out. But LumaFusion is $29 one-time price. There's been no upgrade fee for years, since 2017, 7 years, 8 years, something like that. They have to survive, so they put on these, they're almost like another app that they have out. $20 for each one. You buy the ones that you want. I have all 3. So Terry and Chris will be on Wednesday. LumaFusion on Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern right here on this channel. The new Final Cut Pro video feels like a marketing rollout for a huge feature release. So tell me why you think that. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just curious. I think the huge feature release is going to be November, like I keep saying. But I have a coffee riding on the fact that there's going to be another Final Cut Pro update between now and November. I have a coffee riding on that with our friend Eric Emmerich. So, anything else? We've been on 79 Saturdays in a row, or I might have skipped one. Let me just check on one thing. I don't think there's a program over there at the Creative Summit yet. Not out yet. But we do have the certifications. These have been out for a few years. Final Cut Pro certifications. 3 Final Cut Pro certifications are available as follows: Post-Production, Video Pro, Social Pro. I would not be surprised if they don't add a Final Cut for iPad Pro. So all Final Cut Pro event attendees will receive a complimentary exam voucher, value $149, along with their event ticket. That's not $299 is last year's price. They should change that. It's $599 this year. $299 was an unusually low price for attending the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Last year, they provided lunches for us every day, boxed lunches, which was really cool. Final Cut Pro 11 will possibly be a drastic update, fingers crossed. Absolutely. I agree, and that's what I'm hoping for, that they've been working on Final Cut Pro 11 for quite a while. And I think we're going to get it this year. If we don't get the release around the Creative Summit, at least we're going to get a preview and going to be able to talk about it. There's no sense in showing us a preview and saying, oh, you can't talk about it. That doesn't make any sense. They have never done that at the Creative Summit. Never. They've always shown us previews, future release, and said, yes, you can take pictures of the screen and post it on social media. Post it on social media. Is there any value to those exams, certificates any longer? When I hired people, editors, I was a post supervisor at the National Archives. When I have 2 years, suppose I have 2 people, 2 editors. I've hired 3 or 4 editors of the National Archives. If I have 2 editors and they're both about equal, if one has the certifications for Final Cut Pro and the other one doesn't, I take the one that has certifications because they put the time and effort in to get the certifications. So it depends. It depends on the application. I've had them all my life. They're on my resume. That's one of the reasons I got a job at the National Archives, because I had this Final Cut Pro certifications. The first year I was there, they were told we didn't take any photos or anything, had NDAs. We were allowed to take photos every time I've been there. I don't remember the first year. I wish there was a dynamic link for titles and generators that auto updates. I'm not the exception, Ben, because the National Archives also took my certifications. That's one of the reasons I got the job. When I got the job at the National Archives in Washington, D.C., they had 200 applicants. 200 applicants. Most of them were college students. A lot of them were out of college in their 20s and 30s. I had the experience, and I had all the certifications in Final Cut Pro. So I'm not the only one that uses those. That's not correct. Good afternoon, Final Cut Pro community from Dominican Republic. Thank you for joining us from the Dominican Republic. Once Siri has access to Finder, we will see awesome workflow improvements. For example, in the Photos app on the iOS, machine learning is incredible. So, does getting an Apple certification hurt you? No, it does not hurt you. It's only a net positive. It's only a net positive. Why not? Do you learn something in the classes? Of course you do. Is it 100% necessary to get a job as a Final Cut Pro editor? Of course not. Nobody ever said that. But you always learn things. People have a tendency when they're learning Final Cut, I've seen it because I've taught the classes, they have a lot of holes in their learning, like Swiss cheese. These classes fill in those holes. It's a more structured way to do it. Do you have to do it? No, you don't have to. Is it a negative? No, it's a positive. It's a net positive. It's good to have, it's one more thing to have on your resume. On your resume. When I got the job at the National Archives, they didn't have a Final Cut Pro system in there. But I had all these certifications and they could see that I was dedicated in getting them. It was an Avid system. So even though it was an Avid system and I had nothing on my resume about Avid, I was still hired. There's 2 of us that were hired out of 200 applications. I had a good time down there. 8.5 years I was down there. Then I got tired of driving to DC. Got tired of driving. Had a really good time. I switched the Avid system over. It was an Avid on the PC up on the 5th floor. And I slowly switched it out to Final Cut Pro. And then from now, then when I left, we were all Final Cut Pro. Who in the heck knows what they have now? They had Premiere, they had Premiere, and they didn't have Avid anymore, but they had Premiere. I don't know what they're doing now, but that's what I had. We did a lot of stuff. I have some of the record views on the National Archives channel of stuff that I edited. 2 of them specifically. Everything was done on Final Cut Pro after I got things rolling and got rid of the Avid system. All righty. So anything else going on? Is anybody else getting an iPhone 16 Pro Max next month? I'll be getting one. I get one every year unless there's no updates video-wise. Let's just check over here. There we go. Check, check, check. Yes, yes, yes. So are we glad that Apple finally promoted Final Cut Pro? Yes, we are. Everybody's glad about that. Don't forget to subscribe over there at my YouTube channel, Richard Taylor TV. All my social media, some people I've seen, they've had different names for different social media. They have this and they have this variation and that variation. All of my social media is the same. Richard Taylor TV. YouTube, Richard Taylor TV. Facebook, Richard Taylor TV. X, Twitter, Richard Taylor TV. Although on X and Twitter, I also have FCP Radio 1 and FCPX TV over there on Twitter. My iPhone 14 Pro Max still serves my needs, absolutely. The only thing I have to say about the iPhone 15 is 2 things. USB-C rather than that horrible, horrible Lightning port that they had and they refused to get rid of for years. I hated that thing. It was so slow, USB 2 speeds. And number 2 is Apple ProRes Log is a game changer. It's a game changer, but I wish they would expand that to cinematic. I wish they'd have a cinematic version of Apple ProRes Log, because when you do cinematic, the Apple ProRes Log is not available. The other thing is sometimes I shoot with 2 cameras at once, front and back camera. You can't use Apple ProRes Log there either. I'm still using my i13 Pro Max. Wait another year. Absolutely. I completely understand that. I'm just saying this has got me spoiled. Now, what I'll do is, this is not quite a year old. This will be a year old when the iPhone 16 Pro Max comes out in September, October. I'll keep this for an additional year. The following year, I'll sell this one for whatever. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. Thank you for tuning in and adding to the viewer count. I'll keep this one for an extra year, and maybe I'll sell it when the iPhone 17 comes out. Maybe I'll sell it when the iPhone 17. But I'm always going to have, going forward, USB-C, Apple ProRes Log. I want to have 2 of these cameras with me at all times. I have some older iPhones now. They all shoot 4K video, so I use those. I still use my 7 as a Stream Deck remote. Absolutely. There's some apps that record Cinema DNG on iPhone, but the resolution is limited. I saw that, but Cinema DMG, I've never used that. I know it was popular for a while. I use Apple ProRes Log, absolutely. Thank you for the other thumbs up. It's another one. Thank you very much. Let's go back. Watch a little bit more of that video.
Final Cut Pro includes even more features that are both powerful and incredibly easy to use. The Object Tracker lets you drag titles or effects right onto your image.
What the heck did I click on?
Final Cut Pro for Mac to make every spoken word sound amazing, switch on detect and track the movement of face you use. The Object Tracker lets you drag titles or effects right onto your image, and Final Cut Pro will detect and track the movement of faces and other objects automatically.
Pretty darn good. So all of the NLEs are fine. Avid's fine. Premiere's fine. I have 3 NLEs I use. Final Cut Pro is my first choice. LumaFusion on the iPad for anything iPad related. I love LumaFusion. And also Blackmagic Resolve, DaVinci Resolve is absolutely a great NLE. The Final Cut Pro team even brought that up the last time we were in Cupertino. They gave accolades to DaVinci Resolve. So those are the 3. I don't need any more. If they released Final Cut on the iPad without a subscription, I would buy it, but I'm not going to pay for another subscription. So I still use my 7 as a Stream Deck remote. Why do you need a remote for the Stream Deck when I like the physical buttons on the Stream Deck? Here's my Stream Deck right here. I have it. I have the big one. I like the physical buttons on the Stream Deck. I don't like the new Stream Deck with the dial and you got to dial through menus and stuff. I want the buttons right there. Physical buttons are all programmable. I use this for the dock. Instead of using the dock, because my eyes are getting a little weaker, I use these big buttons on here for all kinds of things. I launch apps with it, even when I'm not streaming live. What do you think about the Apple promo video? What do you think? By the way, that was, I know Buddy was comment from X. And this one was, Tim Musto was our comment from Facebook. So all 3 platforms are coming up. Fantastic. Fantastic. I need to operate the Stream Deck when away from the desk, such as from the choir. Gotcha. Gotcha. Let's see what else we have. So when I'm at the Creative Summit, I stream live from my hotel room. This is one of those days. This is 2019.
Good morning, everyone. Everybody's waiting for Apple Day. All of us are, I know for sure. Good morning, Richard. I hope you have permission to spread the news. Cannot wait to hear. So, Apple Day is today. This is a little different than it has been in years past so far, but things change. We've been told things before we get to Apple Campus in the past, I think the last 2 times. Can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. We get there, and there's an exception made for a certain room. Now, the reason Apple doesn't want cameras and stuff at Apple Campus is because of employees' privacy. They don't want you videotaping and taking pictures of employees, and because employees are walking around and stuff, they don't want that. They don't allow that.
That's the same now. They don't want you taking pictures of their employees. They don't care You can take pictures of the screen, at least in the past. Now, if I don't think they're going to show us something that we can't talk about. That makes no sense. The idea is this is the biggest Final Cut Pro event in the world. Every year is the biggest Final Cut Pro event, Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. So when they show us something, usually so far, since 2016, we're allowed to talk about it. We're encouraged to post on social media. We are encouraged to post on social media. But we want to give accolades to the Final Cut Pro team. Absolutely. They're doing a very, very good job. We would like to see them do a little faster, but for the time being, they're doing a great job. Listen, they told us at the last Creative Summit, they said, we hear all your comments about not putting out this feature and that feature and X, Y, and Z. We know Final Cut Pro the best. We're going to update Final Cut Pro according to our schedule. We know it the best. We know it the best. The only thing I would say to the Final Cut Pro team, because they do watch this broadcast, you need more input from regular Final Cut Pro users. Right now, you have a walled garden of people that you listen to. And I'm sure there's some restrictions put on by Apple, but you should listen to some regular editors. Documentary filmmaker. I don't mean within your walled garden. I mean just outside of that garden. Some of those people, you should listen to some of those people. Now, I know you watch this and you see regular people commenting here and some of my commentary as well. But I think you need a little bit more of that as input. Have you experimented with Final Cut Camera? Yes. Final Cut Camera is an excellent, excellent camera app if you're using live multicam. Those two go together like this, like a handshake. So Final Cut Camera with live multicam is excellent. It's a great, great app. Standalone, I won't use it. I'll use the Blackmagic Camera app or the iPhone native camera app for 3 reasons. Number one, the iPhone camera app, once you press record on the native Apple camera app, once you press record, you can switch the cameras while you are recording live. You can switch to any of the cameras. I have 4 cameras, 5X, 2X, 1X, and 0.5. I can switch to any of those cameras without breaking a sweat. And it keeps on recording. You understand? It keeps on recording. And when I'm out live, when I'm filming, I always switch my cameras and lenses. With Final Cut Camera, once you hit record, the lenses are gone. You can't choose a new lens. So in order to change a lens, you have to stop recording, you have to select the new camera, the new lens, and then you have to start recording again. So every camera switch, you lose 3 to 5 seconds. No. When I'm out live, mobile filming, I want to switch those cameras without losing 3 to 5 seconds because I switch all the time. That's number one with Final Cut Camera. As a standalone app, I'm talking just a standalone app. Number 2 is there's no LUT support. They have Apple ProRes Log, and there's no LUT support. You can't import LUTs. You can't preview with a LUT. You can't burn a LUT in. Why have Apple Log and you can't use a LUT? That's ridiculous. I'm sure these things are going to be updated, and then I would indeed use Final Cut Cam. The third option is there's only one flavor for Apple ProRes Log, and that's ProRes HQ. That's ProRes HQ. It's a very, very high data rate. It's high quality, but also a high data rate for a phone. I have the 1 terabyte, and I'll get the 1 terabyte again. And now you can record to SSDs, which is really, really cool. But I don't want to record in Apple ProRes HQ. I don't need that. If I want to record Apple ProRes with Log, I'll use LT or regular ProRes. I don't need HQ on a phone. Blackmagic Camera can also record Apple ProRes Log in H.264 and H.265 plus 4 flavors of ProRes. There's no reason, if Blackmagic can do it, there's absolutely no reason that Apple can't do it. I hope Apple promotes Final Cut across many groups of users. I feel they target YouTubers and social creators. It's a perception, but I feel like older indie filmmakers get forgotten a little. Thank you. That's Tim from Facebook comment. I agree with you. I agree with you. But in the past, the Final Cut Pro team says, this is what they've said when we've brought up, some people have brought up Hollywood. How much attention do you want to do to Hollywood and high-end films? They said, that's part of the equation. But I don't remember the number they said. They maybe said we have a dozen or 20 different areas that we look at with Final Cut Pro. YouTube is one. Hollywood is one. Documentary filmmakers are one. Education in colleges and high school is one. Event videographers are one. These are all different areas that they look at. So it's not Hollywood's the only thing they look at. It's just one of, let's just say a dozen. I don't know how many. One of a dozen different fields that they look at when they develop features for Final Cut. Now, a feature in one field will benefit everybody typically. Dupe detection. For years, people were asking for dupe detection. We finally got it and use it all the time now. Scrolling timelines, another one. 13 years I waited for that. Finally got it last year. I was right in the front row. Fantastic event last year. The Creative Summit last year was one of the best I've ever been to because it had a lot of new, younger people that were there that hadn't been there before. So it had a lot of fresh ideas and different ideas. Some of they're all YouTubers typically, but the people that have been there for a long time, Steve Martin, Mark Spencer, myself, Phil Hodgetts, we're experienced Final Cut Pro users that have been around for a long time. And that's an important segment. But the up-and-coming people, the YouTubers, iJustine's been there for three Final Cut Creative Summits now. She was there 2018, 2019, and then she was there in 2023. This is where a lot of activity is happening for video editing. So we don't want to exclude them. Of course not. We want to include them. But we don't want Final Cut team concentrating just on Hollywood. There's a lot of things that Hollywood does that we don't need, the average user doesn't need. But the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit last time was very, very high energy, positive vibes. The team was inspirational. You could just feel the exuberance towards Final Cut from everybody that was there, but the team especially. It was very good. Anyway, everybody can't go to the Creative Summit. Typically, I would say average 150 people go to the summit, plus trainers that are teaching, plus the staff at Future Media, plus odds and ends people. And probably like 200 people total, I would say somewhere between 150 and 200 people. I understand there's millions of Final Cut Pro users. There's probably 5 or 6 million Final Cut Pro users on the Mac. The iPad version probably has tens of thousands of users, of people that subscribe. Maybe they have 100,000. But Final Cut on the Mac has 5 to 6 million seats. That's extrapolating from what they told us in 2018. 2018, they said they had 2.5 million seats. 2018. They didn't tell us anything in 2019. That was 2018. 6 years ago, it was 2.5 million Final Cut for the Mac. 4 million, 5 million at this point. Lots and lots of people are editing on Final Cut. If a youngster came up and said, what would you recommend that I learn if I want to be a video editor? Well, first off, you got to know, are you going to go to Hollywood, try to film the edit there? Or are you going to do documentary filmmaking? Or are you going to be independent? Or are you going to be an event filmmaker? Here's what I'd recommend. Wherever you're headed, see what they're using. So if you're going to Hollywood, you might have to bite the bullet and learn some Avid stuff, because that's what they're using, at least now. But I would say, pick up the free version of DaVinci Resolve. They have a free version that probably does 80% of what the studio version does. Free version of DaVinci Resolve. Learn that. Pick up the 90-day free trial of Final Cut Pro. 90-day free trial of Final Cut Pro. Both of those don't cost you a cent. Both of those don't cost you anything. So, DaVinci Resolve free version, Final Cut Pro 90-day free trial. A lot of times when they update Final Cut Pro, that 90-day free trial gets reset. So a lot of times when they update Final Cut Pro, you can go back and get a new 90-day free trial. At some point, you have to jump in. On the iPad, you can rent Final Cut for $4.99 a month or $49 a year. 30-day trial, not a 90-day trial. Try it out. If you like it on the iPad, you can continue subscribing, or you can pay $29 for LumaFusion, which is an excellent NLE on the iPad. That's the way I went, because I'm not going to subscribe to Apple's Final Cut Pro on the iPad. I'm just not going to do it. I have it on my MacBook Pro, and I have LumaFusion, so I'm just not interested. If they put out a version, an option that says you can buy it on the iPad, then you got my attention. Other than that, I don't need it. I got Final Cut on my Mac. Now, here's an interesting point that I've been observing. It seems like Final Cut on iPad and Final Cut on the Mac are going in different directions. And that has to be 100% intentional on the Final Cut Pro team. Now, the latest example of that is live multicam. Is the MacBook Pro, the Mac, not able to do live multicam? Of course it can. Of course it can. I've got live multicam happening right now. I've got this multicam, I've got that multicam, I have this multicam, I have this multicam. I have live multicam running on my Mac right now. Why didn't they include live multicam on the Mac version of Final Cut? They only put it on the iPad version. Once again, they're going in different directions. It seems like they are. Seems like they are. There's no reason why live multicam can't be on the Mac. None. Zero. Unless their intention is to make them separate apps, completely different applications or different feature sets. I have no problem with that. But They're not the same. I have thousands of plugins on my version of Final Cut on the Mac, thousands. There's no plugins on Final Cut for the iPad. So there's a lot of different things between the two versions. But anyway, I don't expect anything this week other than they could do a bug fix. They could do a 10.8.3 or 8.0.1, whatever the heck you just can't tell with Final Cut what they're going to do, how they're going to name things now. The names really don't make any difference. They're not following any logical pattern, maybe to them, but not to the audience. But we want to give accolades once again to the Final Cut Pro team. Thank you very much. They watch this live stream every Saturday morning. Well, it's not morning, it's noon now. And like I said, LumaFusion, I'm going to have Terry and Chris from LumaFusion on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight. Now, that could change depending on if the schedule changes. But if you tune into the YouTube channel, subscribe over there, Richard Taylor TV, hit the notification bell. You'll be notified when I go live. Absolutely. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Is everybody, any other comments before we leave? What do you think about, are you glad that Final Cut is finally being promoted by Apple? Is everybody glad? Let me just do this. Taking a couple of screen grabs. There we go. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Just going to do that. Close that up. We got comments from all three platforms. We got a comment here from YouTube. And then we got a comment here from Facebook. And then we got a comment here from X, Twitter X. So the comments are coming in from all three platforms. That's really, really cool. Very, very cool. I'm glad. I was surprised. Pleasantly. I mean, it's been 13 years, and this is the first time there's been a promotional video for Final Cut on the Apple YouTube channel that has 19.2 million subscribers. 19.2 million. So the Apple video has been viewed 130,000 times. 130,000 times. Final Cut TV and Coffee, we're here every Saturday between 10 and noon, depending on my schedule, between 10 and noon. And this week I'll be here Wednesday with Terry and Chris from LumaFusion. And anything that happens in the world of Final Cut Pro, I'll be back live to let you know about what's going on. Anything else? We got the iPhone 16 Pro Max coming out in September. Maybe a new version of Final Cut around that time, the end of September, beginning of October. Certainly a new version of Final Cut happening around the Final Cut Pro Creator Summit in November. Probably on November. Here's my prediction. November the 13th, 2 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. There's going to be a new version of Final Cut. Very possibly Final Cut Pro 11. Very possibly Final Cut Pro 11.
And to make every spoken word sound amazing, switch on voice isolation and use AI to enhance speech by reducing background noise and optimizing levels. Final Cut Pro also uses machine learning to easily create vertical or square versions of your project for social media.
3 AI things they mentioned there. 3 separate AI items in Final Cut Pro. And that's just the beginning. that is just the beginning. So I'm on Sonoma, and I'm probably going to switch over to Sonoma. What I don't know how to do, here's a couple of things I don't know how to do. How do I bring all my email over from Ventura to Sonoma? All the email accounts that I have, do I just use, what do they call that thing where all the passwords are stored in Mac OS? Something. Do I have to enter all the passwords into my email accounts individually one by one? Do I have to, but I mean, all the legacy emails that I want to save, how do I bring those over? Do I got to copy and paste the information in the Finder and put it in place? I don't know. It's a new era of development for Final Cut Pro. Absolutely, it absolutely is. I wish iPhones would shoot square video to eliminate portrait landscape confusion. Well, they shoot in. I like shooting. Listen, I like shooting horizontal. I do shoot some 5%, 10% video. I do that. I mean vertical. If something is framed vertically, there's no sense in shooting it horizontally. I just shoot it vertically. But for the most part, I shoot horizontal. 4K. But I don't know how that would work with the sensor in the screen. You'd have big pillar boxes on the side of the screen. When you're shooting, if you shot 4K and 4K, you'd have a big pillar box here and a pillar box here, and the 4K just be in the center. I think that would be a little bit. Listen, you can shoot, if you shoot 4K, I shoot everything 4K, everything. My Lumix S5 Mark II X, I shoot in 6K open gate. But if you shot 4x4, 4K by 4K on the phone, I mean, the thing is now it's 4K wide. What is it? 4K? Whatever it is, you can still take a center slice out of the center. You have a full 4K in post. That's what my Lumix S5 Mark II X is. It's a 3:2 aspect ratio. It shoots the full sensor, 6K by whatever the height is, 6K wide by whatever the height is. And you have that full sensor readout, but the sensors, do they use Sony sensors in these? I'm not even sure. I think they use Sony. Maybe Samsung. I forget who the sensors are made by. I understand what you're saying. But if I want to shoot vertical, I'll shoot vertical. If I want to shoot horizontal, I'll shoot horizontal. And I get 4K in either direction. So I shoot some of the stuff vertically, but most of it horizontally. I'm going to get out of here. I got work to do. I have more tapes to try out while I'm working. I got LTO9 tape. I'm going to do a series on my experiences with working with LTO9 tapes. I have a stand desk unit. First off, that desk unit is very heavy. It's 20 some pounds. I think 27 pounds, they said. It's like a computer plus a tape drive. And there's been some ups and downs. Let me tell you, there's been some ups and downs with it. I haven't got it working 100% the way I need to, dependable yet. I got a feeling that I can. But I don't know how anybody does it without help. I ran a 20 or 40 tape library when I was a post supervisor at the National Archives. I didn't have problems like I'm having now, but so far I think they're going to all be resolved. It's a little bit different technology because it's LTO9. LTO10's coming out sooner in months or year, whatever is coming out. I like LTO9. My name is Richard Taylor. I will see you all this week, Wednesday. I have the head honchos over there at LumaFusion, Luma-Touch. Terry and Chris are coming on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Tune in for that. It'll be about LumaFusion, but we'll also talk about Final Cut for iPad and Final Cut in general and working with Apple, et cetera, et cetera. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. My name's Richard Taylor. Final Cut TV and Coffee. We'll see you Wednesday and then next Saturday. Thanks for tuning in.